Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A new report by the City Council's Oversight and Investigations Division details how many ghost plates that are obscured or mismatched, can be found throughout the city. The report included a survey of 3,500 parked cars across 10 police precincts in New York and found that 768 of them did not have New York State license plates. The Bronx saw the highest concentration of ghost vehicles, with Brooklyn and Queens following close behind. The report concludes that more enforcement is needed to protect the public. And joining me now to talk more about all of this is City Councilwoman Gail Brewer. She represents the neighborhoods of the Upper West Side, Lincoln Square, and Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, and she is the chair of the Council's Committee on Oversight and Investigations. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, city and state officials have really touted this crackdown on ghost vehicles over the past year or two. But it sounds from this report like the problem is maybe much worse than they're letting on, right?
I think it's true in the sense that 1 out of 5 of the ones that were looked at were in fact unregistered correctly. And I was surprised because the fact of the matter is it's not only, as you suggest, covering or perhaps a paper, but people can purchase them illegally, both from a storefront in Brooklyn and online. So I do think it is much more pervasive. And the other issue is people are, with these sorts of plates, are in fact going through more red lights, they're going through more speed lights, and they are not paying their fines.
Right.
So it's a real complicated and problem that has to be addressed.
I mean, we heard a lot, especially in the run-up to congestion pricing, about people who were defacing their plates or altering a digit so that the cameras couldn't read them and they could get out of paying the tolls. But it turns out the out-of-state plates are also a big problem because they might look legitimate, but they're not actually registered to the vehicle.
Right, that's exactly what was looked at, specifically the ones that are out of state. That's what this survey looked at, and that's where they found so many 1 out of 5 that were not registered correctly. And as I indicate, they could in fact buy them online or buy them from a storefront in Brooklyn, which we have shared the address with NYPD. So hopefully they can close them down. And then what happens, as I suggested, they're often in criminal activity. Not only do they not pay for Easy Pass, they park in front of hydrants much more than others that are registered. They don't pay their fines, and they obviously don't obey the laws near schools.
And in some cases, those vehicles are actually used to commit more serious crimes, right? And in that case, it obviously makes it a lot harder to find the perpetrator.
Absolutely. We're joking and saying you got ghost guns and you got ghost plates. And in fact, both of them are active in illegal activity.
Right. So does there need to be more serious penalties for this sort of thing? Because, I mean, you're finding so many of these ghost vehicles. Obviously, people feel like they can do this with impunity, right?
A couple of things. They need to be towed off the streets. Right now, we have not enough tow trucks, and as you know, not enough tow pounds with available space. In Manhattan, to the credit of Cuomo, when he was governor, he closed the tow pound in Manhattan, and we don't have a new one. We can't just put the boot on them because, they may not ever move. They got to be off the street. So that's one issue to be addressed. And the second one, of course, is, yes, they need to be, the cops need to have a targeted focus. Right now, it's good to go to the bridges, but they need a targeted focus in the neighborhoods that we have identified that have the most unregistered vehicles. You can do that, figure that out by looking at some databases.
Right. So, part of it is enforcement, but what could be done legally? Because I read in the report that some of the stuff that's sold online is not necessarily illegal to do under city law, right? I mean, is there something legislatively that could be done?
Yes, obviously it's illegal not to cover the plate, but we need to have it so it's illegal to purchase and put it on your car. That could be done locally. We're going to work on that for sure. But I think also we need to, as I said, make sure that you are focused in these neighborhoods, particularly where this illegal activity is taking place.
And the crackdown that has taken place up to this point, I mean, we saw even just a couple of weeks ago, I think we saw the city talking about all the thousands of vehicles that have been, the ghost vehicles that have been impounded. A lot of that is taking place at the toll crossings, right? So it seems like they're doing the right thing. They're doing a good job of enforcement in some locations, but apparently not in others.
Yes, right? I think the ones that we're talking about are actually parked. And they need to be going literally car by car to identify those that are parked and illegally registered or not registered at all. Obviously, and particularly focused on those that have out-of-state plates. That's what we did, and that's where we found so many are not registered correctly.
So when you see those out-of-state plates, it's not necessarily a tourist in that car or somebody who's passing through. It could be somebody trying to game the system.
Exactly.
Yeah. This reminds me, Councilwoman, of your crusade against the illegal smoke shops, because I remember you also had investigators sort of canvassing the Upper West Side, and they found so many of the unlicensed dispensaries. I mean, I guess there's some parallels here, right?
There are, because in that sense, to the credit of the state, they were trying to have a different persons manning and staffing and owning the shops. And in between the legislation and reality, a lot of illegal opportunities became available. And so we had, I don't know, 3,000 illegal shops at one point of smoke shops. Here, there is also, I think, an issue, because there is a law that needs to be passed. There is also some state legislation pending on the same trail. So there's legislative, here we have a situation where people don't want to pay the tolls, I guess, and so they are gaming the system, and legislation hasn't caught up. Very similar to smoke shops. Your favorite topic.
Well, I'd have done a lot of coverage of the issue, and actually I was going to ask you, how things have progressed and where we are now. I mean, are most of those illegal smoke shops, in your district, for example, that you guys had found, have most of those been shut down? I mean, what do you think of the state?
We closed 93 on the Upper West Side, and I think there's maybe one left. We're very happy about the closing, and I have to say the ones that are legal and dispensary and authorized by the state are phenomenal. Nobody even knows they're there. They have lovely interiors, and so could be happier about the ones that are there now, legally.
Do you think that maybe the mayor and, I mean, some of the other authorities as well haven't gotten enough credit for this? I mean, it seems like the clampdown on the unlicensed shops was actually pretty effective in the end.
It was, but it took a while. Don't forget, and that's not necessarily the city's fault. I think that somewhat the state's fault, because they passed the legislation and had no ability to crack down on the illegal ones. Right. It took a while to do that. So there's blame everywhere, and there's obviously the sheriff and the mayor deserve credit too. Yeah.
In our last minute or so, let me ask you a political question. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but Zohran Mamdani is the Democratic nominee. He's obviously the front runner to win the race for mayor. The council has been a real check on Mayor Adams, who is obviously more of a moderate than I think the council as a whole. What happens if there's a Mayor Mamdani who I think fair to say is further to the left than a lot of council members? What does that dynamic look like?
I mean, I think that I've been in this business for, many decades now. And I think when you end up having to run something like the city of New York, I don't know if it's moderate or just good governance. That's what takes over, has to take over. And so the city council also has to pass legislation that, is in line with good governance. That's what I hope. So I don't know whether it's moderate, I don't know if it's progressive, I don't know if it's to the left or to the right. Let's just run the city so that people are safe, healthy, transportation, and good schools. And I think that's what everybody's aiming for.
All right, City Councilwoman Gail Brewer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.